Hey guys, it's Bet here. Today I wanted to bring you a video for Escape from Tarkov. I wanted to touch on some sort of beginner information for those people that are new to the game, as well as some tips and tricks and things like that. So if you're sort of a new player or even an intermediate player, there may be some stuff that you can get from this video, especially for those beginner players that are just picking up the game. The first thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about vendors. So if I go into Skier, or let's go into Therapist instead. If I go into Therapist, I can see what her current attitude is towards me, as well as what the next loyalty level will be at. The loyalty level affects what items they will sell to you. So as you can see at Tier 1 Therapist, I can buy these items. But at Tier 2, it adds these items, and then at Tier 3, it adds these items further. If I have it on all the items, you can see all the items at one time. The reason why you want to level up vendors is you want to get access to the higher things that they sell, because it can definitely affect what sort of items that you can buy from the vendors. And the higher tier you get, the easier it is to replace good gear. So they'll sell better armor or more effective meds or that sort of thing. Perhaps a better gun that you just don't have access to at the lower tiers. And the way that you level up the vendors is that you have 3 different requirements. So the first requirement is the overall level of your character. You can level this up just by doing actions in game. Most actions will give your character experience, which will in turn level up your character. This is something that basically happens passively while you're leveling up, like while you're playing the game. It's not something that you necessarily need to focus on. The other 2 elements, though, are something that you sort of need to focus on. The second one is the favor with the vendor, that you're sort of your rep level with them. This is gained by doing quests, which I will talk about in a second. And the final one is the money spent on them. It does say spent, and for all of the vendors, this is in rubles, even though for Peacekeeper it says that it is in dollars. It's actually the ruble amount, which is roughly 100 rubles is equal to $1 US. So if it says like, oh, spend 2 million with Peacekeeper, it's actually 2 million rubles, not 2 million USD. That would be insane. So as you can see, I have met one of the 3 requirements to get her to loyalty level 4. I don't have level 35, I'm only level 30, and I don't have the appropriate amount of quests completed, but I do have the appropriate amount of money spent. And this counts as items that you buy from them, as well as items that you sell from them will also contribute to this number, even though it says spent and not bought, like bought and spent. Or like not spent and also received from trades. So in order to get up the quests, we can take a look at that now. So for tasks, I have some completed, as well as this one that I'm working on currently. So I have to find 30 cans of meat, which are the Tashanka items, which is the Tashanka quest. It is not a timed quest, it's just a completion quest, so I have unlimited time to complete this. If you run into a time quest when you are doing the game, you will have to complete it in real world time. So if it gives you an hour to complete a quest, it will be the next hour from when you start it, or if it gives you 3 days, it'll be the next 3 days. So if you're at the beginning of a work week and you accept the task that says, oh, it's a timed task, or if you're about to get off for the night and you accept the task that's a timed task, it can really mess with you. So I would suggest definitely for the quests, looking up guides and stuff as to which quests are timed and which quests are not. And even though it will tell you where it says active right now, it will tell you before you've accepted a quest if it is a timed quest or not. It will not currently tell you the amount of time that you get to complete that task. So, and then at the bottom here, you can tell what awards you're going to get upon completion. So you can see here, I'll get 0.06 rep with Therapist, which will bring me from 0.55 to 0.61, which will be enough to complete 2 out of the 3 requirements for getting level 4 Therapist. If you are not the current level with them that you need to be the tier 4, sadly you can't see what items they sell at the next tier. I feel like that would be a good thing to add, because it would sort of tell you whether or not it's worth getting to the next tier, or whether or not one of the items that you got, you're sort of like a couple of levels away from being able to buy that item. I may make a video eventually that touches on the vendors and what they sell at each level. Later in this video, I'm going to be talking about what items to take into a raid, and talk about which things they sell at tier 1 for sure, so that you know what things are best to bring into a raid and what things you should leave in your stash until later, because you just can't replace them as a low level player, because you need to be a higher level player in order to buy them from the vendors. Yeah, so I think that's a good place to sort of segue into the next part, which is going to be talking about what items to take into a raid with you. Alright, so secondly, I want to talk about what items you want to take into the raid with you, as well as what stuff you get to keep out of the raid. So let's talk about sort of what your inventory looks like to begin with. This over here on the right side, just for people that are starting, most people will assume that this is fairly obvious, but I want to mention it just in case, because I want to mention some of the really sort of very beginner stuff in this video. This on the right side here is your stash. Anything that is in here is stuff that you are not taking into the raid with you. As such, it will not be available once the game starts, but you also don't stand to lose any of this. So if you go into a raid, you'll only take the stuff that's on the 2/3 here on the left, that is equipped to your character. And a lot of these stuff is functional things that you need to take with you. There are 2 items on the left side of the screen that you will not lose if you die. One is whatever item you have in your scabbard, which is typically a melee weapon, or exclusively a melee weapon, but can be a couple of different types. There's a few different knives in the game, as well as this hatchet. That is something that you will not lose, and as such, if you hear people talking about doing hatchet runs, that's what they mean, because they carry nothing on their person except what's in the pouch and what's in the scabbard, and typically it will be a hatchet, as I think that is the best melee weapon in the game right now, as it's the one you get for sort of ordering the highest tier of the game. I killed another player and took his to get mine. I put it in my scabbard and put my my bayonet in my pouch. So moving on to talking about the pouch. The pouch is your container that dictates how many spaces you get that are basically safe spaces, that are safe when you die. When you start at the lowest tier of the game, and I'm talking about the tier that you buy, not level tier, you start with a 2x2 container called the Alpha container. When I got to level 29 and tier 4 with Peacekeeper, I was able to buy the Beta container, which is a 3x2. There's a quest that you do for Prapor that is quite late on, that is apparently a difficult task to do that I have not gotten to yet, that gives you a 4x2, which would be 2 squares larger than this. And if you pay for the highest tier of the game, you will start with a container at level 0 that is the Gamma container, that is a 3x3. And you can put things into here that are items that you don't wish to lose. So if you pick up something that's really valuable, you can stuff it in here. I like bringing meds in here because I always bring multiple of meds and have them in here. And if I die, then I didn't waste my meds. I also have my key bar with my keys on it. I only have a couple of keys right now because I was going to do runs on woods. And I also have my wallet, which can carry all the different types. Like I can have 4 different stacks of money, which allows me to carry euros, dollars, and rubles all at the same time, which makes it a little bit easier to loot money. I'll talk more about the containers and what specific things you can put in them later on, because I'm going to talk about saving space at the end of this video. But moving into the next part of the talking about what you should bring into a raid, those are the 2 things you get to keep. So whatever's in your pouch and whatever's in your scabbard. Let's talk a little bit about what armor you can buy at tier 1 and what effect it'll have on protecting you. Okay, so for a tier 1 player, and I'm talking about tier 1, I'm talking about between like level 1 and level 10, when you're only tier 1 with the vendors, when you haven't really completed that many quests and you're still sort of learning the game. You're tier 1 because your vendors are going to be at tier 1, and as such you'll only be able to replace tier 1 items by buying them from the vendors for either US dollars or rubles. When I go over the items, I will tell you at what tier you were able to buy them and from which vendor. So let's start with the Coal Pack, which is the helmet that you are able to buy from Prapor at tier 1. It's roughly 8.5k rubles, and it is a helmet. It's a class 2 helmet, which is the lowest class in the game. There's a class 3 and a class 4, I think. The Coal Pack is, it's not the best helmet, obviously, but it is a lot better than not wearing a helmet. So the reason to wear a helmet as opposed to not wearing a helmet is it will stop shotgun pellets from hitting you in the head, which is a great thing to have not hit you in the head. It will stop somebody from being able to one-hit hatchet you in the head, which is also something that is very desirable, to not be hatcheted in the head. And it will stop some of the pistol rounds, not all of the pistol rounds. There are 9x19 millimeter, so that's the P226 and the Grach pistols that are able to go through the coal pack, that are the PST GZH. And when we talk about guns and ammunition, we'll talk about that in a second, as to why you would want to bring armor piercing as opposed to non-armor piercing rounds. But the coal pack will protect you from some of that stuff, and especially against the hatchet, it's really nice to have a helmet that stops you from getting one hit by a guy that has a hatchet, especially if you're bringing in gear with you. So that's a quick overview of the coal pack helmet. As far as body armor goes, at Tier 1, you will not be able to buy any body armor that covers the stomach and the chest. At Tier 2, Peacekeeper and Skier, they both sell P.A.C.A armor, which is, again, a Class 2 armor, and it protects, again, your stomach and your chest. As soon as you get access to that, I would start running it in conjunction with a coal pack. But even if you don't have access to that, if you're bringing in like a full-sized rifle, as well as like a backpack and stuff like that, if you're being slightly more geared, it is a good idea to run the coal pack, even if you can't run chest armor, because it will stop you from getting killed like with a one shot through the head, at least for the lower caliber ammunitions. All right, so next we're going to talk about, let's talk about guns next, because that's pretty exciting. At Tier 1, you're able to buy a couple of different guns. My two recommendations would be the SKS and the AKS-74U. The reason that I would recommend these two guns is that they hit fairly hard. There's something that you can buy straight up without it being like a trade-in, having to trade in items for it. And they are something where you can buy the magazines independent of the gun. You can also buy the Vepr, which is a single-shot AK from Skier Level 1. However, you can't buy any backup mags for it. So you would either have to buy two of the guns and sell one back without the mag to get two mags in order to reload the gun. Or you would have to find mags in the game world, and you couldn't always guarantee that you're going to be able to find the right mag and put the right ammo in it. So I would recommend not using the Vepr until you get to a higher tier with Skier in order to buy the mags for it. But the SKS you're able to buy, as you can see I have the gun, I'm going to drag that over on the sling, and I'm going to drag the mag over to my Scav Vest. The Scav Vest is where you will put your mags typically, because it is your tactical rig. You can also purchase a Blackrock from Tier 1 Peacekeeper, which has more slots. Let me slide one over there now. I'll show you what the Blackrock looks like as opposed to the Scav Vest. The Blackrock has just more room, essentially. But I would recommend running the Scav Vest, because chances are you're going to end up dying a lot when you're a low-level player, and the most cost mitigation that you can do, the better. And the Scav Vest is about 1/4 or 1/5 of the cost of buying a Blackrock, especially when you're at a low level. It's only 3,000 rubles as opposed to like $100 and some odd for the Blackrock. I think it's more than $160. So then you would have your mag. So you have two mags, one in the gun, one outside of the gun, and then you would have your stack of ammunition. When you fire off rounds and you unload the gun, one of your mags will go back into your open slot on your Scav Vest, and the other mag will go into the gun. This mag will then have some amount of ammo left or no amount of ammo left. So so I'm going to simulate that by unloading the ammo. You would then drag over the HP ammo and refill the mag. And then that mag is ready to go into the gun, which is why I'm carrying a stack of 60 ammo that is outside of the gun, or outside of a mag. This way you can get away with running only 2 mags and running more ammo. Currently in the game, just sliding it over is enough. It doesn't trigger an animation or do anything as it would like in real life. If you're going to refill mags mid-combat, it would not be something that I would recommend. But in the game, the current way the simulation is, it seems fine to do that. And it allows you to carry 60 rounds in one slot as opposed to 20 rounds in 2 slots. It also allows you to get away with running a Scav Vest with just 1 extra mag as opposed to running a Blackrock and having 2 or 3 extra mags. You will need an empty slot, and I'll show you this when I'm sort of doing a run through of the game, and I'll show you some of the more useful commands to use, but you will need a spare spot in your scav vest for the mag to come out of the gun. Because if it doesn't have a room for it to go into that's either in your tack rig or in your pockets, and your pockets aren't big enough for a SKS mag, it will just drop onto the ground and you will lose that mag. You'll be able to look at the ground and pick it up, but it's not necessarily something you want to do mid-combat or something you want to have to go back and try to find it afterwards. So talking about the guns, the SKS is one choice. And the AKS-74U is another choice. The AKS-74U obviously has a different mag, as the mags are not compatible, and it also uses a different ammunition type. The SKS uses the same type as the AK-47, the AKM, because it is a 7.62 round. It is a 7.62 by 39. The AKS-74U uses a smaller round that is a 5 by 45 by 39, or 545 by 39 millimeter. So if you bring in the high power round, the hollow point rounds, and you try to put them in this mag, it will say wrong ammo type. So just be wary of that. The way to find out which gun takes which ammo is to inspect the gun, and it will tell you what caliber it takes here in this bottom right hand corner. The reason I would run an AKS-74U over an SKS at when you're at the tier 1 vendors is the PS ammo that you're able to buy from tier 1 Prap War, which is the same place you get the AKS-74U and this backup mag are both from Prap War, is that the PS round will go through ammo. I'm level 30 and I'm still using PS rounds because they're cheap and they're easy to get for me, and it does perfectly fine against class 2 armor. So the cold pack and the PACA, which looks like this black vest armor, it will go through that without much of a problem, which it doesn't force you to have to aim for the legs, which obviously cannot be armored. The SKS with its hollow point rounds will not go through armor, at least not with the same ease as the PS round. So I would the SKS is probably a better gun, especially at range, than the AKS-74U, but if you're coming against an armored target, just be aware that the hollow point round that you buy from tier 1 skier does not do well against armor, so you will have to aim for the legs if you want to take that target down. Alright, finally for weapons, I want to talk about pistols. There are a few advantages to running a pistol as opposed to running a full-size rifle. One is that pistols are typically cheaper and you run faster with a pistol out, because that's how things work in real life. And you can also get away with, because the magazine is smaller, so you can see right now I have a magazine for the P226. The P226 mag is only a 1 square, and thus you don't need to have a scav vest to make it work. So you can put the mag in your pocket, and your guy will be able to reload from his pockets by unloading and reloading in the next mag. You could even have a stack of ammo in your container or in your backpack in order to refill the empty mag that comes out of the gun. So that's just one reason to run the pistol as opposed to a full-size rifle, is that it's sort of less to lose, and you can get away without running an extra piece of equipment such as the scav vest. However, there are some drawbacks to the pistol, which is that the P226, because it uses the 9mm PST GZH round, which again is available at level 1 Prap War, tier 1 Prap War, it will go through light armor like the coal pack and the PACA, which is excellent, but it is expensive because it can do this. So it is actually nearly the same cost as getting an AKS-74U, except you buy it from tier 1 Peacekeeper for like 200 some odd US dollars, which is very close to the 220k, or not 220k, the 22k rubles that you would use to buy the AKS-74U. And obviously the AKS-74U can go fully automatic, whereas the P226 cannot. You could also buy the Makarov or the TT pistol for significantly cheaper from Prap War. The Makarov is 4K and the TT is only 7K. However, neither of those pistols rounds, no matter which round you buy, will go through armor consistently. So if you're going to run a pistol, especially if you're going to come up against armored targets, you're probably better to run the P226. At higher ranks, you gain access to the Grach pistol, which is a cheaper version of the P226, or a comparable version to the P226 that is cheaper. It has slightly more shots in the magazine at 15 instead of, or it's 18 instead of 15. And uses the same ammunition, so the hitting power is basically the same, because in this game the damage output of the weapon is mostly dictated by the round of ammunition fired as opposed to the stats of the gun itself. So if a gun is firing the same caliber round, it will basically hit for as hard as another gun that's firing the same caliber round, regardless of what the gun is. There are a couple of different choices that I didn't touch on now. I'm going to do a weapons modding video, I think, for which weapons you can mod at different tiers and things like that. And I'll talk more about some of the shotguns and stuff that maybe other weapons that you could buy. But I think starting off, you want to either run, if you're going to run a pistol, run the P226. If you want to run a longer rifle for woods or shoreline that are sort of longer engagements, you can run the SKS. And if you want something that's sort of a medium range gun, close to medium range, I would run the AKS 74U on probably factory and customs. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the weapons. I will demonstrate the reloading system as well as the bullet reloading system when we get into sort of a mock match. I'll do an offline match later in this video, and we'll talk about some of the controls and things like that. But next I'm going to talk about the med system and why you want to have certain meds on you over others. So the reason why you want to have certain meds over others is some stop bleeding and some do not. When you get hit in the game, you will you have a chance of getting a bleed indication, and your chance is a lot higher when you're lower level because you haven't leveled up some of your soft skills that stop your guy from bleeding as often. There are two ways to fix bleeding. You can use something like an IFAK, which is a medical sort of a multi-purpose medical kit. I can inspect that right now. So you can see it can remove blood loss, remove toxication, and removes radiation exposure. The toxication and the radiation exposure are not elements that are in the game yet, but the blood loss is. So it will take 30 of its 300 HP to stop you from bleeding. You may be bleeding on multiple limbs, and again, that's something I'm going to do a full system or a full video on the medical system and all the ins and outs of it. But all you need to know is that the main difference between an IFAK and an AI2 is that an AI2 will not stop bleeding and an IFAK will. You may have to stop bleeding multiple times because if you are bleeding and you patch it, you'll get a fresh wound status on wherever the bleeding was from. And you can reopen that wound if you are sprinting or if you engage in combat again. You have a high chance of getting that wound reopened, and you'll have to re-med. So if you are bleeding and you've patched the wound so you're not bleeding anymore, but you have the fresh wound status, I would recommend not sprinting just to avoid doing that. The bandage is another thing that can stop bleeding, but it is a one-use item. So if you're bleeding from two places and you only have one bandage, it will only bandage one of the two areas, and also will not refill the health pool of any of the health that you've lost because of the bleed. So you can run a bandage in an AI2 and they'll kind of do what an IFAK does. Obviously running a bandage in AI2 is cheaper. But running an IFAK, for me, I just feel like it's a lot better to have an IFAK at the low levels. And the IFAK you're able to get from Tier 1 Peacekeeper for $60. I think it starts at $55, but usually by the time you get it, it's $60 because people have just bought them out. And the IFAK's just a little bit more versatile than the AI2 and the bandage, which also takes up more space, forcing you to run something larger. And if you want to hotkey your medical items, which I would suggest that you do, they need to be in your pockets or on your tack rig in order for you to hotkey them. And you would do that by clicking the item and dragging it down to your hotkey bar at the bottom. The first first four over here, so V and 1, 2, 3, are for your weapons and are only for your weapons. So I typically have painkillers on number 4 and an IFAK on number 5. And then I just don't use an AI2 or a bandage, but I wanted to have them to show you. So if you inspect an AI2, you can see it only removes radiation exposure and does not remove blood loss. So you would have to use a bandage, which removes blood loss but doesn't heal you at all. So I'd recommend running an IFAK as opposed to a bandage or an AI2. And then I always like to carry backup meds in my beta container. So if I get killed right off spawn and don't get a chance to med, that I didn't lose my meds, that I didn't have hotkeyed. But if I end up having to heal more than what one single IFAK can heal me, because for every hit point it restores to you, it loses one of its hit points, then I have a backup IFAK in my alpha, beta, gamma container, whatever container you're currently using. If you have a IFAK in your backpack, you can't hotkey it, but you can still right click and hit use on it, and it will use it on the item, or you can drag it over and use it on an individual item depending on, or an individual body part depending on which one is injured. So let me take those out. The painkillers are interesting because they will not repair any of your damage, so they won't stop you from bleeding, and they won't stop you from like having some of your HP missing on a certain body part. The painkillers currently seem to have one use, in my opinion, and that is allowing you to walk after you have had one of your legs essentially blackened, which is if your leg is hit for the equivalent of 65 damage, it will go black and you will not be able to heal it. So you could drag your IFAK over as much as you want. It will not restore the leg. It will be blacked out on this character indication screen, and it will cause you to move at only half speed. If you black out both of your legs, you'll be moving at like 10% speed, but if you take a painkiller, it will restore your regular movement, allowing you to jump and sprint, which would otherwise both be disabled, for 4 minutes. So I carry usually 2 painkillers. I might carry more than that because I might need 12 minutes on some of the bigger maps to get out. But if one of your legs goes black, you definitely want to have a painkiller to take so you can move and fight and normally. Because the quickest way to take somebody down, especially if they have an armored upper half, is to shoot out one of their legs so they can't run away, and then continue shooting that leg until it kills them. I believe you have to do double damage to the leg, so you'd have to shoot your leg completely off and then shoot it again for the same damage. Your leg will not physically come off, but it will essentially not be usable in order for you to die, so that's something that you definitely want to avoid. I would recommend, if you're getting shot and you don't necessarily know from where, but you notice that your limbs are getting hit, that you want to pop your painkiller right away, which is why I have my painkiller on number 4 and my IFAK on number 5. Again, they need to be in your pockets or your tack rig for you to have it set up this way. I think right now I'm going to hop into an offline raid, and I'm going to talk about I'll take the AKS-74U and the spare ammo and the meds and stuff, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the controls that you'll need to know when you're playing the game. So I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, so I've spawned in randomly on factory. I can hit tab to bring up my inventory. As you can see, I only have the left 2/3 and my stash is not there because my stash is obviously outside of the raid right now. My AKS-74U has 29 out of 30 rounds. I will now have 1 round in the chamber. If you're like me and you want to have 1 round in the chamber, you can drag over a single round onto the gun in your inventory, and your guy will put a round in the chamber, causing you to have 31 bullets, so 30 in the mag plus 1 in the gun. That's something I like to do just to have 1 extra shot, but it's not super necessary. It's just something that I figured out. You can see my MBSS on my back. You can see my 4 items in my beta container. And you can see my scav vest with my extra mag and my PS ammo, as well as my coal pack on my person. So right now I have no body armor on my chest, and I'm already starting to dehydrate and to lose energy. Most of the time you will not need to carry water, but if you're on some of the longer raids, such as woods or shoreline, you may want to take a thing of water, as I said, in the inventory screen. So let's tab out of the inventory. Obviously, all the regular sort of systems are in this game for, like, you move around with WASD, you look around with the mouse, aim in is right click, all that sort of stuff. That's fairly basic. I don't really want to go over any of that. But I do want to talk about some stuff that I feel like is unique to this game, or at least unique to the sort of some of the more military shooters. So you can use the mouse wheel to scroll your speed. So you can see in the bottom left corner, I have it slowed all the way down, so I'm moving at a crawl. And I can pick anywhere on any of the dots to move at any of the different speeds. So if I want to move like mid speed, I can do that. If I want to move full speed, I can scroll up to do that, or I can scroll down. I can also toggle between whatever I'm currently set on and the absolute slowest speed by hitting caps lock. This is an excellent way of avoiding making noise. So you can see if I run up these stairs, I'm going to make a lot of metal clanging noise. But if I move slowly, I make significantly less noise. So this is good for sneaking up on players if you're behind them, or moving around without making much noise. However, you are obviously a lot easier target to hit because you're basically stationary. Some other things you may want to know is X is to go prone, all the way prone and back up. I currently have it mapped to Z, so I've changed that mapping, but by default it is X. You can also crouch by hitting C. I can't remember if I changed that mapping or not, but for me it's C. I think that might be the default. You can also hold C and scroll the mouse wheel to go on any of the different intervals of, if you want to just try to look over a box or look over a wall, your guy can kind of go anywhere between crouching and standing for like 6 different intervals. I hardly use this, but I can see how if you got used to it, it would be useful. So you can see my guy sort of going up and down there. Again, that's indicated on the bottom left of the screen. It's you sprint. It's toggle by default, which I don't like, so I changed mine to hold. But you hold shift to sprint as well as hold shift to steady your aim. So you can see it's sort of my guy sort of aims down and aims up and stuff. But if I hold it, you can see it's steady. Interestingly, in this game, this is something I feel is unique to Tarkov. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But if you are shooting from the hip, you can also hold, if you're stationary at least, you can hold shift to steady your aim, even if you're aiming from the hip. The thing to avoid with this, though, is if you're moving slightly and you go to shoot somebody and then aim in, you'll continue to sprint. So you have to be stationary in order to use to use shift to steady your aim. What else? Oh, B is switching on switching fire select, so I can switch to full auto. My guy does a little animation. I can switch back. You can do Alt-T will look at your mag, and your guy will say whether it's full or whether it's half. I'll fire off a couple of rounds. Let me switch back to full auto. Now I can hit Alt-T again. My guy will say about half. As far as I know, it doesn't give you a numerical value, but it's a good way to check your mag sort of in-game without having to hit tab to look at, okay, I have 16 out of 30. I think there is full, almost full, above half, almost half, below half, and then like basically empty or almost empty. Now if I was to hit reload, I just hit R to reload. And now you can see in my Scav backpack that my half empty mag went into the empty slot, and my mag that was full went into the gun. In order to make this next mag ready to go back into the gun, I drag over the PS ammo and my guy fills it back up to 30 out of 30. I can then fire off this remaining mag and put the mag that I originally started with back in the gun. Do some fire there. So now I'm empty. You can hear the gun clicking. And I will hit R to reload, put the new mag in. So now you can see my empty mag went into the empty slot and my full mag went into the gun. If I wanted to refill this mag, I could put the remaining 16 rounds into it. And if I reloaded with this round, it would obviously only have 16 out of 30 shots. So you want to carry, you can stack PS ammo in, up to stacks of 60. So you might want to take one mag full, one mag in the gun full, and then 2 stacks of 60 ammo should be enough. Again, it's personal preference. You can run less ammo, you can run more ammo, it's all up to you. But trust me, running out of ammo definitely sucks, so you never want to lose a gunfight because you can't fire back. That is extremely inconvenient. Oh, and if you have an empty mag in your Scav vest, your character will not reload. So I'm hitting R, and it's giving me the need ammo prompt in the bottom left corner. So my guy will not reload. But if I drag over the PS ammo into the magazine, then my guy will reload the gun because now he realizes he has a mag with at least some ammo into it to go into the gun. We can do another type of reloading, which is that you double tap R. Your guy will drop the mag out of the gun onto the floor. So we can do that now and replace it with a mag from the Scav vest. And this reload is slightly faster but causes you to drop the mag. So if you're in combat and it is more important for you to stay alive by reloading the gun than it is to keep the mag, you can do that reload by just double tapping X. Or sorry, double tapping R. Hashtag console player. Then you can pick up the mag off the ground, and you can see that that mag is the same one that I dropped with the 16 rounds in it, and now the 29 round mag went back into the gun. If you have no scav vest on and you go to reload, again, it's like having an empty mag. Your guy will not reload from your backpack, even if your mag is not in the scav vest in the backpack. So I'm tapping R. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but my guy is not reloading. If I want to, I can get really technical by opening the inventory, right-clicking on the gun, clicking unload. My guy will take the gun out, and then I can slide this over to it. But as you can see, that'd be a lot longer to get that into the gun. You can also do this by dragging a mag into your beta container and then dragging it onto the gun. It's just not something that I would recommend. So definitely if you're using a gun and you have a mag that is of the size that you need a scav vest for, or a BlackRock or equivalent, you want to run that so you can just hit R to reload once and have your guy go through that. There are also some other controls that have to do with optics, but I think I'll cover those more in the weapon modding video that I'm going to do, because when you're at the tier 1 and you don't really have access to that many optics, there's no need to know all of the different sort of ways to manipulate them. I guess I can show you L is sort of admire the weapon, so you can take that to look at it. So sometimes when you spawn in as a scav, there's a flashlight on the other side, and you can find that out by hitting L. And yeah, I guess that's it for this part of the video. Those are just some of the useful controls that I wanted to show you. Some other in-raid tips, just quickly while we're sort of walking around factory. Obviously this is an offline mode, so it doesn't really matter if I get out or not. But in order to check my extracts, I can hit O on the keyboard, which I assume is for objectives, and it will come out with the remaining time in the raid, as well as where my extracts are. If it has question marks next to it, there is usually a stipulation for getting to that extract. So that could be it'll time out. The extracts typically have flares associated with them, so I can show you one of the ones on factory now. So if there are green flares near the extract, then it means that that extract is currently active. If there's no green flares or no spotlight or no source of light next to the extract, then that means that extract is not currently active, as it has timed out. You may also have an extract, so there's one through here, that has timed out. So you can see these green flares on the floor. If I go beyond the green flares, it will start giving me the countdown to extract. So I have to stand there for 8 seconds. If I leave the area, it will not extract me. Alright, so using your scav on Escape from Tarkov is a different way from playing the game, where you're essentially given... It's like gambling with house money, because what you're given on your scav character right here is completely random and you have no control over it. So I have the crappy 20 gauge shotgun. I have a scav vest. Looks like I may have a teabag on the back there. Also the skills and the level that he is random as well, and anything that he's carrying. And the scavs come into the raid slightly later than players, and they will not be attacked by AI scavs unless you attack them first, but you may be attacked by other player scavs. And it's essentially gambling with house money, because whatever you take in isn't yours, but if you get out with it plus other stuff, or just the stuff that you came in with through extracting, you get to keep all of those items. So let's say I took this scav in and I was playing on factory, and I was able to find, even if I found a body that I didn't kill but there was still gear on it, I could throw all that gear on my scav and then extract, and I would be able to keep that gear. So there's a couple of things that the scav can't do, which is the scav can't complete quests for you. So if you have a thing where you have to go like collect a letter from a room on dorms, or if you have to kill like 20 PMCs on Shoreline, killing PMCs as your scav will not count towards that quest, as well as leveling up your scav does not level up your PMC. So if you get a bunch of kills with your scav and you get out and it says like, oh, you got 10k experience, you didn't. the Scav did. And your Scav isn't persistent between raids, so you could have a level 12 Scav or you could have a level 6 Scav. You could have a Scav that has terrible shooting or has great shooting. Probably not great shooting, but could have terrible shooting or could have okay shooting. That's sort of all random, that the Scav sort of has access to that. As well as the Scav, you don't get to pick your spawn, but you can go in with your friends and sort of squad up with them. This is the squad screen that I was talking about earlier. So you can invite another player to squad up and both go in as Scavs. And you can have a maximum of 4 Scavs sort of grouped together. Most Scavs, in my experience, don't spawn with great meds. So if you're going onto a map, you may want to learn where some of the meds spawn, where some of the medical bags spawn, so you can get your Scav some better meds, because it's going to be hard to fight when you don't have like painkillers and proper meds and stuff like that, especially because the equipment you're going in with is usually substandard. Yeah, so this Scav's sort of a give and take. Also, they're on a timer. So if I use this Scav and I went in and I died right away, I wouldn't be able to play the next Scav for another half hour. If I went in and I played the Scav for half hour, got out, it would start the timer then. So whenever your Scav is done, whether he comes out alive or whether he dies during the raid, is when the timer starts for the next half hour to use the next Scav. And that next Scav will be a different Scav randomly and have different equipment. So that's just sort of how the Scavs work. The Scavs are great for new players because it's a shot at free gear, which is super excellent when you probably don't have access to that great gear when you're starting out. So you can either sell the gear the Scav gets or keep it if you get out alive with him. And also it's sort of free experience playing the game, where you can try something that, oh, maybe I'm too scared to go to this part of Shoreline because I know there's lots of geared players there and I don't want to lose my stuff because I know my gear isn't as good as those players. So playing the Scav, you don't have to worry about that as much, because everything you get on the Scav you sort of got for free, so then it hurts less to lose it. So yeah, guys, that basically does it for this probably pretty long by this point overview of some of the beginner things that you need to know in Tarkov. I'll probably be doing some follow-up videos. I want to talk about weapon modding in depth. I want to talk about the health system in depth. I may talk a little bit more about the quests. I may talk a little bit more about the different sort of levels of the game, as far as like pre-order tiers is what I'm talking about. So that the lowest tier, which is what I bought, versus the highest tier, and sort of the differences in what you get. But yeah, guys, that's going to do it for me for now. If you enjoyed this video and you thought it was helpful, leave a like. If you thought it was much too long and I rambled for the whole video, you can leave a dislike. If you want to see more Escape from Tarkov as well as some other shooter content in the future, remember to hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment below telling me what you liked or disliked about this video, telling me if you love the sound of my voice, all that good stuff. And until next time, keep doing the best with what you got.